Not yet. Okay, there we go. Going live in three, two, one. This is the Working Title Experience, episode 008. And tonight I have another guest on. Her name is Samantha Martin. Samantha Martin, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you for having me on.
And you like to go by Sam or Samantha?
I think either or. It usually comes down to the longer someone talks to me, they shorten it to Sam.
Okay. Well, okay. Well, let's what exactly? Let's just so my guests get a chance to know who you are. I actually really like talking to people like you because when we talked over the phone previously, you come across as a very positive, a very honest person, and it's always a joy to talk to someone like you. Um, what where do you what are you doing for a living? What do you do?
Well, thank you for saying that. Again, that's very nice, and I appreciate that. Um, right now, for a living, I just sit here at home and take care of my dogs. Um, I was working for a bit in broadcasting, and then with everything that occurred last year and just some personal things, like took a hiatus from that, and then yeah, COVID's made it very difficult to really get any kind of work that I would want to do. So I kind of worked for the postal service for a second, and
Ooh.
here we are.
Oh, what was that like? What was the postal service like?
uh
I gotta say the post office where I live I hate to say this. I don't want you to get angry at me, but they're one of the worst I've ever had to deal with anywhere.
um so because I mean it is a government run entity, right? So when the government kind of has its hand in things, it gets a little dicey. So my biggest complaint about it was just the like the communication. You would think for an entity that is about getting out communications and stuff to people, they would be better at it, but no. Kind of confusion and stuff from all directions. But I would say too, like the people that do work there, you have to have a certain uh maybe be built for it because I was not, but like it's hard work. The labor part of it, just having to lift heavy box, people's uh stuff that they order, like Amazon and all that stuff. It can be pretty heavy, and you have to go through like um a whole bunch. Like people, it's amazing how efficient some of the workers are as well. Again, I am not. I'm slow. But I was also just kind of learning, and then also it was learning to drive the I call them the death traps, the the postal vehicles, because once again they're government vehicles. Some of them are so old they go back to the 80s, like they're older than me.
Wow.
Um, which I mean, they run them until they just can't use them anymore, I suppose. But those are kind of scary, especially whenever um, you have a truck full of packages, because it feels like you have to do the weight distribution thing right, because you could tip over.
So, well, I got a question. Are these vehicles are they right hand drive or left hand drive?
They are, yes, they're the right hand drive, right?
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. So you're sitting in the opposite side where most American cars are. So
Right, right.
does it take a
It's
while for you to get used to doing that?
actually no, it kind of like you go, I went through it's like a day of training basically, but it's not as difficult as you would think. But the most difficult part about it is the different mirrors you have to look at and make sure they're positioned right so that you don't hit any body or thing. Um, it'd be like kind of like with the buses with the big mirrors on the sides, but yeah, you're not supposed to like back up and all that stuff. So it's kind of it's a bit of a learning curve, but yeah.
Okay, I got a confession to make because I actually own two cars that are right hand drive myself. I imported them from Australia, so I know what it's like to actually drive a right hand drive car, and I know what you're talking about. At first, it was like a little weird, but then you get used to it pretty quickly. Um, the one thing I will say, I put one of my cars into it's they're both fully restored. So I put one of them into a show one time, and people were coming up and looking at me, asking, "How do you drive a right-hand drive car?" One of them actually worked for the post office, and he walked up and said, "I drive right-hand cars all the time." And he looked and he saw it was a stick shift, and he's saying, "You can't drive a stick shift on the right hand." And I said, "Yeah, it's not that hard. You just shift with your left hand." And he was looking at me like, "No, you can't do that." He just kept on saying that's not possible. I was like, "I drove the car here." So
I feel like people do it in Europe all the time, right?
yeah.
That's really cool. What years are your vehicles?
Oh, my cars, they're are you familiar with the Mad Max movies? The easiest way to describe it is the black Interceptor that he drives in the movies. Are you familiar with the black car that he drives?
No, I'm like trying to think about who Mad Max is.
Oh, Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson was it was a series of movies that came out. There was a recent one that came out in 2015, but most of them came out in the early 80s. I could try to bring a picture up. Anyway, I'm using that as a reference because the car that he drives in that movie is the same model car that I'd own. I bought two of them, and they're called they're 1990. I'm sorry, 1974 Ford Falcon XB GT coupes. So
Oh, so they're like muscle cars,
yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh,
right?
definitely. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
They definitely big muscle cars, and they're big,
that's
wide car.
that's awesome. I actually just saw a video earlier today about this old abandoned car dealership that was found, and it had all the from the 60s. So it had all of the showroom like full of old vehicles just collecting dust, and I'm like, whoever found that is set for life.
The the interesting I found, I don't know if you had to have this experience when driving with a right-hand drive car, was that you drive the postal vehicle. So is there an inside mirror looking back to your left? Are you looking back? Can you see back there? I'm not sure how you drive one of those smaller vans, right? Is that right?
So they're long life vehicles, or like there's LLV or FV, I think is what it is. But so there's like you don't have windows in the vehicle. Like all you have is the two like the sliding doors. So you kind of have to maneuver the whole vehicle, and like if you're gonna yield or merge into traffic where the yield sign is, you have to kind of maneuver the vehicle where it's like you can be at a like a right angle to look to see if there's any oncoming traffic because you wouldn't be able to tell. So yeah, the mirrors that you see, it's like more of being able to see the side view and then like reflecting into the other front mirrors so that you can once again see if there's anything behind you. It's a thing. Like, it's like you
Now,
have to get used to that.
I got to ask you. You said some of these vehicles are old. Now, a lot of people don't seem to remember this, but back in the early '80s, the post office actually purchased several Pintos. Do you remember the Ford Pinto?
I was not alive, but I know I've heard of it. Like, didn't they have to recall it, or wasn't it like they were just not good?
Yeah, the first year, yes. They fixed what they did was the first 3 years of the car, I should say, had a problem where if you it rear-ended, it would rupture the gas tank and it could catch on fire. So, but
Yeah.
what happened was the Pintos that the post office purchased were the last year that it was made, and it didn't have that issue. So, but it was one of those weird things seeing a person delivering mail in a Pinto, in a Ford Pinto, painted up with the U.S. Post Office insignia, and they were all over the place. I remember those back in the early '80s.
That
Um,
well, they do have like, which I preferred to do this because you had actual working heat and air conditioning because it was a normal vehicle. But they would buy like they have nicer regular cars and vans and stuff. And then they also like they were switching over to, which I don't know if this is like the government or what, but getting like Mercedes type vehicles. So I'm like, I don't know if that's going to start replacing um, the vehicles that are out there on the road or not. I hope so for like safety reasons because, like I said, death traps.
oh, you're breaking up just a little bit there.
Oh no.
Oh, okay. I hear you now. I hear you
Okay.
now. I got a picture here. I got a picture of what my car look. One of my cars looks like, so we can show you what it looks like. There you go. Can you see that?
Not yet.
Oh, not yet. Okay, so you can't see it. Sorry. Okay. Well, what you can do is you can rewatch the video, I guess.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, you see it? Okay.
I see it.
It's bright red with a black stripe, kind of.
So you have two of them?
Yeah. The other one, I will see if I can bring that one up here. Hold on. Is that no? It's not it. This website doesn't actually exist anymore. It's actually defunct. Hold on. I think my other one is over here. The other one is extremely rare because it's actually black, and you can't change when you buy these cars. You can't change the color of the cars; they have to remain the same, otherwise their value drops. So, hold on a second. I'm not going to see it, am I? Uh, yeah, sorry.
What made you want to get two of them?
Well, it was kind of funny. What happened was, okay, I think this is it.
And from Australia.
Well, the first one, there it is. Okay, there's my other one right there. Um, it's black with a silver stripe. So I don't have those wheels on it anymore. I actually put the original wheels back on, but um, basically the car was it's extremely rare, and I wanted to get it. I wanted, and they're at the time they were relatively cheap. I paid like about 18,000 for one and 19,000 for the other, and now they're valued. I think the value is like closer to 100,000 each. So
Like
the
a Tesla.
you see Tesla,
Mhm.
the and and they were the fact that they're so rare, and a right hand drive car and a muscle car at that was really what drove me want to buy it. These other pictures are not my cars; they're just other people that own them. So, but anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and bring that back down. The other vehicle,
That's awesome.
yeah, it's I like to take people for a drive because you put them in the left side of the vehicle and they get all freaked out because there's no steering wheel in front of them and they get all weirded out. So I don't. Do you ever do that in the post office vehicle?
Um, I didn't freak out. You don't have like another seat or anything
Oh, okay.
to have anybody else in there.
Oh, okay. So you can't really do that. Okay. It's funny if you ever get a chance to do that. The other postal vehicle I wanted to talk about, since we're on the subject, was the old Jeeps. Do you ever seen any of those?
Actually, well, I want to say they actually maybe had one, maybe, but when I think old Jeep, I think of like 70s or something like that. Or this one was probably like mid 90s Jeep.
Okay. The post office Jeep was like a staple for a long time until they got the newer vehicles. They were they were right hand drive. They kind of resembled a regular Jeep, but a little different. And they were designed specifically for delivering mail. And they were all over the place. And then the government sold them all off, so people were buying them left and right and using them for personal vehicles for a while. And now they've kind of faded away into obscurity. Hardly anyone seems to anyone younger doesn't seem to remember them, but they were all over the place back in the 70s and 80s. Those are big vehicles. And like the vehicle I think you drive is like a smaller van, right? With a big kind of rounded bumper.
So there's a different like there's the LLV, and then there's like the FFV, and one of them has more of the like squared off end in the back, and one of them doesn't. And so the difference is like one of them has the like kind of like a safety type step in the back, and then a little bit different in the front when you're driving. One of them, like the FFV, like I couldn't really reach, so I would have to use the LLVs. But yeah, yeah.
There's a I brought a picture up so so you can see what I'm talking about. This is if you can see it. Uh,
Oh, I like.
yeah, these
Yeah,
little
it's like the MASH Jeep. That's what I was thinking. That's what I
yeah.
was thinking.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, they're like and they were all over the. Imagine driving anywhere during the 70s and 80s. They were all over the place. That's all the post office people used all the time. All right hand drive, all automatics. And there was really, it was just everywhere. You just saw them all over the place. So
Man, I like it. I own a Jeep though, so I've kind of always been partial to people that have Jeeps for some reason. I don't know why. Um, and I actually have just learned, and I don't. I have because I'm not in like Jeep culture or anything like that. Um, because maybe but certain cars, it's like it's a culture, right? Like
Yeah,
different groups of people are all into it. And I just learned about people talking about quote unquote Easter eggs when it comes to Jeeps. So it's
yeah.
like I've never heard this, but it makes me want to go look at my Jeep and be like, what's on there that I didn't know about? That's like secret Jeep stuff. Or it's like some people, like, apparently, like, just random people will come and like there's like, if they like your Jeep or like something about your Jeep, put like a little rubber animal or something on it. And I didn't know that was a thing either. And so now I'm kind of bummed because I'm like, well, no one likes my Jeep because they're not giving me any little rubber animals.
What type of does it look like the post office Jeep, one of those style, or is it a
No, my Jeep is it's a it's a 2010 Liberty. So
oh
it's kind of got that squared look in the front a little bit. Like it's not the where they were like rounded for a while. But I feel like it's I mean, I like it because it's almost like it was on the cusp of when they changed it to where it's like I don't know if I like the newer ones because a lot
the,
of the new stuff it's like they make the new vehicles to be like spaceships. I don't like it.
so yours had the square headlights, is that right? So didn't they already
Hmm.
switch back to the round ones by then? Or
I don't know. I mean, uh, like it just looks different. Like I used to like the round ones, but yeah, mine has the squared front and like square mirrors.
okay, I see it.
Um,
I brought some
yeah,
pictures. Here you can here you go. You can see some pictures here. Oops, I want to.
but
I,
it's the first vehicle. I was proud. It was like it's the first vehicle that I like picked out myself. Like did the whole process alone by myself. Because the other vehicles I have had, it's like I helped pay for them, but I didn't get to pick them out because it was like hand me down sort of stuff. Um,
oh,
and yeah, I've had the worst luck with vehicles, so I'm pretty excited that this one is not leaking. It doesn't have moss growing in it, like mold.
moss. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Wow, what kind of
Yeah.
vehicles did you have?
Well, the last one was a 2000 Ford Explorer, and it was like, oh man, it was pushing 300,000 miles. But yeah, it didn't have. It was like it would leak. The the windows weren't sealed right on it, and so
Oh,
like when it would rain outside, it would rain inside, and
I've had the car like that. Yes.
so, so yeah, so it started growing like white mold or something, and like moss, and I was
Oh
like,
my
I could,
goodness.
yeah. So I was dealing with that for a couple years, and you know, money pits, but. So, anyways, I was pretty proud of myself that I finally was like, yeah, I'm
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. What would? Uh-oh. I think you went quiet there.
sorry. Can you hear
Yeah.
me?
Okay. Yeah, I hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay. But yeah, so I was pretty proud that I could make an adult purchase like
Gotcha.
that. Yeah.
So, so where do you live that you would have want to drive? These are more like all terrain vehicles. Is this like common for you where you're at?
Um, yes and no. Like I don't do any like off trail stuff. I'm not, pulling I don't know what you pull with a Jeep, but I live in Missouri. So
Wait, I stop you right there. I got to ask you a question. Is that the correct way to pronounce your state, Missouri? The reason I
yeah.
ask is I've heard it pronounced different ways. I've heard it
Wait,
pronounced Missouri and Missouri.
uh
And
yeah, I don't know. I've never met anybody that calls it Missouri seriously.
okay,
I mean I've people poke fun at that, but I personally haven't met anybody that calls it that. So yeah, Missouri, or they'll call it misery because like does they hate living here. But yeah, so I live in the central part of Missouri, but we have all the seasons. So wintertime and stuff makes for if you have like a four-wheel drive, it's good.
do you ever go on one of those little mountain excursions where they drive their vehicles over rough terrain, over big rocks and everything? I've through the mud, and you never do any of that.
No, that I wouldn't like that. I think that would scare me to be on terrain that's like questionable. I mean, some people use their utility vehicles for that reason, but no, I just like the Jeep. But are you in, did you say you're like in Washington?
I'm in the DC
Or
area, yes. I'm in Virginia, just outside of DC, about 30 miles south of DC. I've lived in Virginia my whole life, so, so if anything about DC, I pretty much know anything about the roads and everything about. I can tell you that there are areas further west of here that people that would probably have more vehicles like what you drive, um, including my friend who periodically comments in the comments section, which he's not doing tonight, but he, um he has a Jeep that's very similar to yours. So I don't know what it is exactly. The but the where he lives, it's very much in the mountains. The foot more into the Appalachian Mountains areas. DC is not really in the mountains; it's more in the foothills, if that. So where you're at, is it mountainous?
no. Um, Missouri's pretty, it's not as flat as Kansas, but it's like I guess where I live, it's like the very, very, very technically like the beginnings of the Ozarks. Um, like most people wouldn't know that it's the beginning of the Ozarks, but I was a history major, so that's why I know this stuff. Um, but no, we have like hills and nice scenery, I guess, when you get out to where you can see that kind of stuff. I'm about probably like an hour or so from the Lake of the Ozark.
Hmm.
If you know, if I don't know if you're familiar with Lake of the Ozark, but a lot of people go there touristy. Um,
So let me ask you about. So you're more near the plains then, or the flat area. Flat. It's more very flat where you're saying mostly, right? And is it kind of like that? I mean, I drove through Texas one time, and it was the area of Texas that we're in was so flat that the cold front came in really, I mean, really fast. I mean, the temperatures dropped like it went from like 80 to like 30 degrees in like a matter of hours. When the cold front came through. Does it happen? Does you get cold fronts that come through pretty quickly like that where you are?
yeah, so here, I mean, you're not going to see mountains here. um, uh, it's, it's, yeah, I guess it would be flat. I have never like done a lot of traveling, so it's hard for me to compare other places. Like I've been in Texas as well, so I can compare that, and like Texas, it's like forever and ever and ever you could be driving and you'll still be in the same
Oh,
like
goodness. Yes.
same area, but you're like, oh my gosh, how are we not like out of here yet?
Uh,
It's
that
not like that with Missouri. Missouri, you'd be like, from one end to the other within 6 hours.
yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, I know I experienced that traveling across the state of Texas. It was like 850 something miles from one end to the other. And it's like, when does this ever end? And it just never ended. It just kept on going and going and going. And finally
You
got
know,
across there, was it New Mexico? So
my friend that I had actually gone through
okay.
Texas with, she told me one time, which it's still hard to wrap my mind around this, but she said that, you could fit the entire population of the US inside of Texas,
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I believe that. Yeah, I can believe that. And you saw
which is crazy.
you probably have a lot of space left over too, I would imagine.
Yeah, it's like it kind of puts into perspective like, oh, like the US is bigger than one would think. Um I don't know, I was just like, "What?" But I just didn't realize like, yeah, no wonder Texas tried to be their own country, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. For like 9 years, and then they decide to just join the United States.
yeah, but then recently they want to do it again, I think. It's like
Oh,
Hawaii.
what about Hawaii? What did they are they trying to secede as well?
Well, I think the culture in Hawaii, as far as I understand it, is kind of similar in the respect to Texas. How Texas has their own stuff, like their own like trucks and their own like stuff that they make, and it's Texas. I think Hawaii tries to be like that too, where they don't really want to be. Whereas Texas is attached to the main states, Hawaii's not. So I think Hawaii likes to keep their whole culture. I don't think they like to really be incorporated with uh, the mainland.
Hmm. Okay, I
Have you
didn't know
never
that.
really? You've never heard this? I like, yeah, I feel like that's like a thing.
Yeah, I guess I never really thought about it. I mean, that's interesting. So, I mean, as far as like their, I mean, does that mean they don't like people coming in? I mean, it would seem they would like the tourists. I mean,
I think it's more of like maybe the like keep your keep your traditions or something out of here. Like don't well yeah, bring tourism, but it's like don't bring your culture here. Like you can enjoy our culture, but yeah, because I think that yeah, I think it's about like self-preservation probably, even
hmm.
though you have the benefit of being a state.
Yeah, yeah, I didn't know that. Honestly, I mean, I'm a student of a I shouldn't say a student, but I always enjoy, looking at history or reading about history myself, and I do have some questions to ask you about that. But as far as Hawaii goes, I've never actually questioned that. I mean, it's one of the areas I've just most of my interests lie in like North American history. So, and I know Hawaii is not really part of North America, except for the fact that it ties into the United States. So I kind of left that out when I was like when I look at the history of anything.
Yeah, my I've never been to Hawaii. I think I would like to go just to see it. But also I am a big Elvis fan. I don't know if you could see, but Elvis is like in the background up there. It's a drawing. Um, and my little I call this my Zen den that I'm talking to you out of right now. Um, but so Elvis, of course, filmed some movies there, and then it's like he's the one that helped make the uh, the memorial, the Pearl Harbor Memorial up there possible.
Did he
So
really? Oh
yeah,
wow.
he like
Hmm.
he donated a bunch of money to that being built. So and I wanted to go see that as well because I think that that's um just that's like morbid, but it's also like an important part of history to go see if you're in Hawaii.
Honestly, I've seen it, but you're gonna laugh at me. The only time I've probably seen it is on the TV show The Brady Bunch. There's an episode where the Brady Bunch actually visits the Pearl Harbor Memorial. So that's the only time I've probably ever seen it. Maybe a couple of pictures here and there. So they actually visit in the show, if I remember correctly, they visit the Arizona, and there's like a memorial that's standing over top of the Arizona, and they look down. I don't know what you can see there exactly, but
Yeah, it's been I know it was closed the last few years for I don't know, I guess they needed to fix some things. Because like or maybe you don't know, but oil is still leaking from the ship. So it's like
yes, yes,
yeah, and
I've
it's
heard that. I've heard that.
but yeah, like anything it needs maintenance, so they had to close it. But I thought that would be something cool to kind of like wanting to see like Holocaust museums and stuff like that as well. Like I hear like New York City has a really good one.
Oh,
It
oh,
could be good, but as far as museums go for that kind of thing, I hear yeah, it's a must see.
uh-huh. Yeah, DC has a Holocaust museum. Think I don't know if I went there though.
Maybe it's DC. Maybe I don't know. There could be multiple, but you're really close to like the Smithsonian and stuff. So
Yeah.
have you been there?
Oh yeah, yeah. Been to quite a few of them. Yeah, the Natural History Museum, the it's the Air and Space Museum. One of the things I loved about the Air and Space Museum is it's one of the oldest IMAX theaters in the country. So one of the things I'd like to do is go there with friends, and we'd go see there's a movie there. It's called To Fly, and it's only about 24, 25 minutes long, and it came out in 1976, and I think they still run it. Um, and it's a movie that they only released it on VHS and on Laserdisc back in the 80s, and they have never released it anywhere else. So basically, unless you can find a copy of it, you have to actually go to the theater to see it. And it's most of the visuals and have stood up over time pretty well. it's one of these movies I would highly recommend anyone to go see. But it's really breathtaking some of the aerial stuff that they do in there. But that's
Is it literally about flying like airplanes?
yeah, it gives you a brief it gives a brief history of the United States and flying. So it focuses primarily on the U.S. Starting with they start with the first thing they show is a guy in a hot air balloon, and it's all actors at that point. And it goes up, and you can see it's the music is the score is very beautiful, very well done. I don't know who did the score. The narrator in the movie though is kind of bland, kind of monotone in his delivery. He's not really that good. He actually sounds like someone you would hear from like the 50s and the 60s. He's kind of outdated sounding. But aside from that, the visualizations still hold up. It goes through the hot air balloons, and then to when the Wright brothers started creating fixed wing aircraft, and it goes all the way to the modern time, all the way up to what was going on up until 1976. And with the exception of they actually go into space at the very end, that stuff looks kind of dated because it's not real; it's just models. But the rest of it is real flying. And I used to fly for quite a few years. I worked as an airborne traffic reporter, and once you do that, you never forget what it's like. And some of the visualizations reminded me of flying in a small Cessna 172 around cities. It was really cool. They did a pretty good job of capturing everything.
So was that like one of your favorite aspects of your, I don't know, if your broadcasting kind of career is like getting to do that kind of stuff?
Oh, the flying? Oh yeah, yeah. I love
Uh-huh.
doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that's ever going to really be a thing anymore. Because when I was doing it, they had it was basically at a time when they didn't have any sensors in the road, so or sensor pickups of any kind. So basically nowadays, the reason we had airborne reporters was so they could fly around and see the accidents, and nowadays there's cameras all over the place, and the sensors really show you everything. So you really don't need an airborne reporter anymore. Occasionally, TV stations still have them for just to so they have a pretty face that can describe an accident. And they can hover over top of the accident and give you the gory details what's going on below them. But that's about it. I mean, it's not really a thing anymore for traffic. It's kind of faded away.
You're like, back in my day, they put me in a helicopter and I got to talk about the traffic.
The yeah, I never flew in a helicopter though, so I never got a chance to see what those are like. I'm kind of afraid to go in a helicopter because once the rotors stop, you're going straight down. When flying in a Cessna, the if the engine goes out, you can still fly because there's a magneto inside the engine that keeps it going. So as long as the engine doesn't actually seize up, the propeller will still work. So if the ignition cuts out, you can still fly. The engine will still work based on the magneto. So it's a much safer vehicle, even though the planes we were flying in were actually built like you're talking about the old post office vehicles. I remember every time I asked a pilot how old the planes were, they always said the same thing. They were built in the mid to early 70s. So they were pretty old. I don't think they
Like
built
they're built to last.
built to last. Yes. Now the difference between like say driving a car that's that old and flying a plane is that the pilot, if as long as they're competent enough, actually has to do a very detailed safety check before we go up. So the idea that it's going to crash, unless they're very incompetent, they should be able to detect if there's an actual issue before we actually went up in the air.
Yes, there's same with the postal service. You're supposed to do a thorough safety inspection every time before you leave to go do your route.
Did you ever take a? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, so like same thing, like because they're so old and you know you gotta make sure everything's working properly.
Did you take
Proper as
ever
it
take
should.
a driver's ed class?
Did I take a driver's ed? No, that wasn't a thing when I was growing up. It was just like you do your own self study, and then you go to the police station, and then they give you the police officer gets in or driving instructor, police officer gets in the
Okay.
car with you, and you get to drive around with them.
The reason I ask is because when I was got my driver's license in Virginia, driver's ed was a big thing. In fact, they would actually teach it for an entire semester or quarter, I should say. So like during physical, like PE, the PE class, what they would do is instead of teaching PE for one quarter, you would actually take a driver's ed class. and they teach you how to drive. And one of the first things they teach you is you have to do a safety check around the car just to make sure everything's okay. And people are like, well, nobody ever does that. And the teacher's like, no, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to actually walk around the car, make sure that everything is okay, look under the car, make sure there's nothing under the car, and before you go anywhere, you're supposed to do it every single time. And everyone's like, no, but nobody ever does that. So, and it's when you're talking about the postal vehicle and the planes, it's that's they that's done with what we from things that we've done, but I don't think anyone else really cares about checking for anything on the regular vehicle.
No, it's probably just with like with anything, you just you that takes too much time. But that's just thinking about the fact that you got to take a course like that. It's like, oh, you learned a valuable life skill, like in in school to do something like um they should probably have something like that. If they don't, I mean, I went to a small town school, public school, so it's like we just didn't have anything like that. And then I'm assuming because if you're from Virginia, like your high school, you probably had like what, several thousand people you went to school with? Is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah. In fact, the school I went to had it was actually what they call a secondary school because it had grades 7 through 12, and each grade was had about well, the seventh and eighth grade had about 700 students each, and the grades 9 through 12 had about 500 students each. So when I was going there, I think it's a lot more now, but I haven't been there in a while. But they checked it out. I periodically I would check out like go to the website to see if I could find any details, but just see what's going on there. But I think it's actually increased.
Yeah, my high school graduating class, if I remember right, was like maybe 160.
Oh wow, okay, okay.
Yeah.
So that was
So our
um,
whole school had like 1,000 kids in it, or a little over.
okay. So yeah, but where I went, it was like there was just kids all over the place. It was just flooded with kids.
Which is kind of not like, it's cool, I think, to hear stories of people that have had that experience. Like even, bigger cities here, of course, have bigger class sizes and stuff. Because, whenever you're in a small town growing up, it's like, you know everybody, and you've probably known them since you were in kindergarten. So I always kind of thought it was weird when people would like date each other because it's like, oh, that's like your brother, like because you've just grown up with them, or yeah. But it's like where you're from, you probably don't even know everybody in your class. Like,
No, no, I don't. But I can relate in another way because I work in radio. The DC market works just like a small town. Everybody in the DC market knows of everybody, or they know of them. They either know them or know of them. So, like everybody in the DC market knows of me in some way, most likely, especially since I run my own business. Um, and I know pretty much everyone that's in the DC market. I mean, there's it's a very it functions just like a small town. We all seem to know each other. So like if I do something that makes like any kind of any kind of local news, like if I post something on a forum, people from the market will just contact me. Hey, I saw you put that in there. A whole bunch of people will contact me and say, hey, how you doing? And people I don't even like will send me messages too. So uh, I usually ignore those though.
you're like, I don't like you, stop sending me messages. Um, yeah, I think everything's kind of like a small world wherever you are. Uh, I think, oh yeah, because I was watching your interview with Jackie Hollywood, actually, because you guys touched on that. Um, right? Was it her, or maybe it was a different interview that you had. You were talking about the degrees of separation with different, wherever you live. Um,
I forget.
but
I apologize. Um, yeah, I don't remember
yeah,
right off the top which one it was. I mean,
but yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that's the case where at whatever industry you work in, um, you're
but
gonna kind of have that, and it's surprising, I guess, how small the world is, especially when I think of like the music industry and stuff like that. It's People don't realize that it's really just smaller than you think.
Your career was in radio for a while. Would you like to talk about that?
Well, I can. um,
So, so why did you choose radio?
well, I don't know that I chose it. It's kind of one of those like happenstance things. I was interested in it in college. I took kind of like a course for a little bit. It was like radio production. Um, and then I didn't do anything with that. Uh, I just took the class. But I just thought that it would be, you know, the quintessential like, oh, how cool, like just to be on the, radio, but also like I really enjoy music. Um, so anyway, I moved back to my hometown a few years ago after living in Springfield, Missouri. That's where I went to college. And I needed a job. So I kind of got involved in working at some music venues. And my goal, I guess, was like, oh, network, make connections, hope maybe, and like move to Nashville or something like that. Um, and that didn't really happen. But the local radio station that was in my hometown, I kind of, it's been around forever. And I wanted experience. So I kind of just showed up and worked there for like 2 weeks and then got a job uh, where I am now. I just again like happenstance. I just kind of like emailed, walked in, and was like, "I'm interested in doing this," and then it kind of started from there. But yeah, mainly just it was like it was a country station, and I enjoy that music and just being able to do something that I thought would be like super cool, man.
Well, it sounds like it's super cool. I mean, I mean, I'm not sure how is it really that easy to get a job in radio where you're at? I'm amazed. I mean, it's
I don't think so. I don't. That's why I'm like, I just it was probably just like the right place, right time sort of thing, maybe. Like, um, it's just weird how life works because it's like what I was doing. If anybody has ever worked in like retail or the service industry where you're catering to people and especially like a bar scene, and that's where they would have the live music, but it's like it can be very heavy and grating on your soul. So I was at a point where I was just like, I have to get out of here. And then it's like I saw that this particular station was looking to hire people, and then the next day I got an interview. So it was kind of just, you can't make that stuff up, I don't think.
did you enjoy it? When you did that?
Working at that station, or I I enjoyed what I enjoyed most about that was the community stuff that they would do because I mean I really enjoy the aspect of like helping build up people doing stuff that matters. So they did a lot of good work within the community here, like with children's women's hospital. Like MU Health is a big thing where I am, so they're they were really involved in doing stuff with them, and then uh, getting to go to country concerts. Like I always thought that was cool. I'm not the personality though where I could be like if you're working and doing something, it's one thing to be able to be on or like, oh, I'm so and so because you have a job to do. But when it comes to like if you're just hanging out and maybe you see an artist or something and you wanted to talk to them, it's like I don't have that personality where I could just be like, hey, I'm so and so. Like use it to your advantage or something like that because I always felt like that was kind of like skeezy. But I did think it was cool to get to meet artists though.
That was pretty cool. And my career, I'll be honest, I don't want to. I've only worked at one music station. I was only there for about 6 months, and believe it or not, the call letters were this is real were WGAY, and it was it was a relaxing romance kind of station. It was the woman's name who owned the station apparently back in the '60s. Her name was Gay, so they named the station after her, WGAY. So oftentimes when I tell people that, they snicker a little. It's like, no, it's real. It was the real call letters, and it one of the most popular radio stations in the DC market for a very long time, from the '60s into the '90s. And the funny part for me was, I said I was only there for like 6, 7 months. I walked in one day and they told me, "You don't work here anymore." I said, "Really? Why?" They said, "No, we changed the format. We let everyone go." I was like, "Oh." So I drove all the way from my house to the station. I basically lost my job. It didn't really matter. I mean, I was just doing it for. I wasn't really into the music, and it was more. It was the target audience was actually women ages 25 to 45, and I was more into the doing talk radio and news and traffic anyway. So, but it was just kind of funny. I walked in one day. Why are you here? You don't work here anymore.
That's so weird. Like that's super frustrating too. Just, was that like your first job, or was that
No. It
later?
was like it was early on, but no, it was just a part-time job, so it wasn't too big. I was just doing the evening shift. And I was part-time, so I wasn't doing every evening shift. It was alternating between a few different people. So, but
So
I was
did you go to school? Did you go to school? Because people will ask that too. Like, did you go to school to do, uh, like broadcasting?
kind of. What I did was I went to a local college that taught how to basically how to get into the recording industry, and become a sound engineer. And I used that as the internships that were available through that. I used that to get internships at local radio stations. So that's how I was able to get into radio. It's DC is very hard to get a job in radio because you have to actually know somebody or get in through an internship. It's otherwise it's virtually impossible to get into radio. That's the way when you told me how you got into radio, I was like, wow, sounded like it was really easy. But you said it was like you just had to be at the right place at the right time.
I, well, and I think too, like, because this is a small world. Um, I kind of think working at the music venues helped in that respect, just because it's like the radio station works with the venues when it comes to different concerts and stuff. Um, but again, it's like I'm not that kind of personality where it's, you know, we live in a world where it's like, oh, it's who that kind of stuff, and it's I that's always drove has driven me nuts, because it's like I think things should be more about like the your the quality of the person and who they are, what they can offer, and that's just it's frustrating is what that is, because like you said,
Okay.
it's like if you don't know anybody, you're not going to get a job. Or
Yeah, and then one step further beyond that, it should be about your ability to do something, but it doesn't matter in the DC market. It's basically who you know, who you can suck up to get to keep your job and get a promotion as well.
which is crazy, because then it's like, you're not, in my opinion, it's like you don't have employees that are like working from a place of security, like, and that they want to, I don't know, like I just think that would affect it's drinking the Kool-Aid is what it is. And it's like if you don't do that, then you're not going to get the different accolades that people think are important to bestow upon you. But it takes away I think the drive for your to have authentic workers, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. And then the people that are left there behind are just people that are in little groups or cliques, and it's kind of people that I just don't interact with anymore. So I mean, after a while, I got fed up, and that's why I started my own business. So
Yeah, I mean, that's cool. I think that honestly, like, it's with the pandemic stuff, it's kind of made me realize, like, yeah, I really enjoy actually kind of being able to, everyone needs to make a living, but it's like being able to kind of have my own time to myself. Because being in that environment can be draining, and just being like, I'm more introverted, so being just around people in general could be draining. But it's like, yeah, especially when it's people that you're just like, you just don't click on that kind of level.
hmm
So it's
yeah,
just been nice to be able to, just kind of not have that interaction.
I could agree. I've been doing that for the past 9 years with my business, so I don't have to deal with people. I mean, with the exception of when I first started my business back in my first set of affiliates, I actually had people that were working for me working out of my home, doing the reports out of my studio, out of my home. So I did have to interact with people out of my home for a while, and that lasted for about a year. And then they built their own studios, and they were able to work out of their homes. So aside from that, it's been basically me just doing everything myself, and I don't have to deal with anyone physically in person, just over the phone or through the internet like this.
Do you find that you're like, do you have a more reclusive, I say introverted, but like more of that kind of personality? Like, I mean, because some people it bothers to be have so much alone time, and for example, I've never been one of those people. So I'm like, are you kind of the same way?
Yeah, no, it's fine. I don't mind being by myself. Especially since the last job I had was with Clear Channel, and if you're familiar, well, I don't know what Clear Channel is like where you are, but where I was, it was not a good place, and I was just glad to get away from it. So, and when I was finally away from it, I was like, okay, I actually felt a lot better. So, but I will say though that I have had jobs in radio where the people were actually very nice. And that was the one station I would say would be WTOP, which is like a really big news station in the DC market. Actually, they were number one for a long time. I think they still are. And I would have to say that like 95% of the people there were very good people, which is at least in the DC market, that's hard to find. I mean, usually in any business, there's always going to be scumbags, and then there's other people that are just like you don't want to deal with. And this was the exact opposite. So when I left that job, I was like, I was actually, that's the one thing I missed was the interaction. So at that place, being open with a lot of people was actually pretty fun because there's a lot of friendly people there that I could interact with. So in that case, that would be different. But after I left there and went to Clear Channel, yeah, I was glad to get out of it. So
Yeah, I guess that can be taken for granted too, because it's like I can't say really because I've never been in a larger market or city, so it's like, the cutthroatness, I guess I haven't experienced to a certain level. Um, so in comparison to like working for a smaller market, smaller run company, it's like, yeah, you get to know people a little bit more intimately. I mean, depending on how you get along and the different dynamics there, but it's like, yeah, people here too, they call it Midwest polite. Like, I think it's a real thing. It's like people are generally like uh more apt, I guess, to be friendly here, in the workplace and in general.
uh-huh.
So I mean, I'm sure it'd be kind of like a shock if you I'm not sure what you're used to, but I guess I'm just imagining like more East Coast people to be very like cut you off if you take too long to explain a point or something, or be like, I don't have time for this.
Yeah, 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 where I'm at, I'd venture to guess, based on what you're telling me about where you're at, I would say that your area is probably a little bit more laid back, as far as radio, at least radio goes. I'm guessing compared to what I have to deal with. I'm not saying it necessarily is fully laid back, but it seems like it would be more so. I don't know. It's hard to tell. Um, it would be more relaxed, I guess, is what I mean. DC is very uptight, and people definitely will cut you off really quickly, as far as radio goes. And yeah, if you don't do what they, if you're not part of a certain little group, and I never liked being part of a group, so basically I was mostly an individual, and so it's basically why I probably never got advanced in any. Well, actually I did advance in a couple of companies, but since radio is always being bought out by other companies, I would get advanced, and then the companies was working for would get merged together with another company, and I would get laid off, and so my advancement meant absolutely nothing at that point. So, um, the I never got an advancement at the certain companies that weren't being bought out though. So, but yeah, because of that kind of cutthroat kind of mentality. So.
Yeah, so then you feel like uh it kind of goes back to that, maybe, I don't know about for you, but like that being taken advantage of sort of thing, because it's just like, you're just you're giving more to your that company, and then you're not getting anything back for it.
Oh, yes. Oh, I can fully relate to that. Yeah, when I was at Clear Channel, I came there with a lot of experience. In fact, more experience than almost everybody that worked there. And basically, they were using me for my experience. But then when it came time for me to get something in return, such as a promotion, I was like, no, that's okay. We'll just keep you at, we just want to get your information from you. We really don't want anything else. So, and they
Well,
kept me.
yeah, why pay somebody more for like all the different jobs that they do because they're already doing it.
Yeah, and it was the people who sucked up to the boss got the promotions, and it's like, okay, whatever. And I just backed off, and I didn't really care anymore. So it was first 2 years there. I was gung ho, was doing anything to get advanced, and after that, I realized it wasn't worth it, and I just backed off. And spent an additional 5 years there, just coming in collecting a paycheck. I didn't even. It was very obvious. I tried to make it very obvious that I didn't really care. I remained quiet. I hardly talked to anybody except for like one or two people, and then just did my job and left as quickly as possible. Snuck out as quickly so no one would see me. So
That makes it so. I mean, that's your life, that's their time and energy spent somewhere. And it's like, uh, I was raised with my grandparents, so it's like I have that. Um, I was raised with that mentality of like you have to like suck some stuff up and put up with stuff because it's like that's your livelihood and your job. But it's like I just feel like, would you say 5 years? Like that's a lot of time to keep going into a place where it's just. I would
oh,
assume you would start feeling like, oh, like your soul is
well,
dying because.
actually, well, the funny part is that's when I started my business. So I started my business when I was still working for the same company. So I was actually in competition with my own job. So I took all the energy from the first 2 years and focused it instead on the company, on my business. So basically, when I went into work, that was like my time off. I would just sit there and look at the computer and do my job, and then go home. And that I didn't worry about it that much. And then when I got home, that's when I'd focus on my business. So all the energy was still there. It was just focused on something else. So
Yeah.
uh,
So how did you get into, I mean, are you kind of like a self-taught like business guy, or did you like take courses on having your own business? Because in my brain, it's like the theory of that. It's like, oh yeah, that's cool, but then it's like executing that, I would be probably overwhelmed.
yeah, well, I just jumped into it really, but I did take a course in college called Small Business Management, which did help. But I didn't take. But the thing was, I didn't take it because I was starting my business. I took it because it was a requirement for the course I was taking at the time. So, but it did help with me going through. And I did learn some valuable things. The woman that taught it had her own business, and she was very smart. And I was glad that she taught the class. But aside from that, no, I just jumped right in. I said, if I fail, I fail. I'm not gonna, what's the point of, if I don't just try, I'll never know. So I just jumped right in. And, I made a lot of mistakes at the beginning, of course, like anyone does, but I learned from those mistakes and moved on.
Yeah, I admire that. I like I have a friend that um that kind of did his own business and stuff too, and it's like he's the kind that can like I, once he decides to do something, just like pull the trigger and do it. Like he's flipped houses and stuff like that and made money doing that. And I'm just like, maybe it's a perfectionist type thing with me, but it's kind of like there's so many ideas that I have that I would want to do, but then it's like, oh, I'm afraid it's not going to be right. So then I don't do them.
Well, the one thing I had, when I had the first few people that I had working for me had what they had ideas of what I should do. And I don't mean to sound rude towards them, but they would say, why don't you do this? And I would actually take their ideas and go with them. And then I realized later on I shouldn't have, because they had no idea how to implement what they were going to do, how to do it anyway. And then I ended up starting something, and then I get stuck doing something years later that I wish I'd never started in the first place. Like with one of my affiliates, I'm still having to do an update for them on a website that I built, because it's one of the people that worked for me said, "Why don't we build a website?" I said, "That sounds great," and so I built it. And now I don't want to. There's nothing. I'm not getting anything out of it like he thought we would, and I'm still maintaining this website for them. And it's basically a traffic website of sorts. And it's like I feel like I shouldn't have followed his advice. Should not have just jumped right in and just listened to him. I should have thought it through more thoroughly So there are times where it's better to think things through. But and also one of the other people that worked for me made a suggestion that we should do traffic reports for a website that had a bunch of traffic cameras. And I asked her straight up, how are we going to this one? I did not go through on. I said, how are we going to do that? Who's going to do these reports, and where are we going to get the funding to do this? And at that point she kind of shut up, because I was like, that one I thought through it, because I was like, that one's going to cost a lot of money, and I knew I didn't have the funding to provide that, even if, and I didn't see how we could get any advertising. So there are times where I would actually say, no, let's not go through with those things. So.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things, I think, at least I am learning and trying to create that boundary, but it's like, taking advice from people, or like making a decision based on what they say, but they're not the ones that have to live with the consequences necessarily.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like
And
you have to live your life, and it's like, yeah, I mean, people mean well. Well, you would hope that they mean well, but it's like, yeah, you're the one that's gonna have to deal with whatever comes
yeah.
from that decision.
No, no, I want to change the subject just for a minute, because you talked. I've been meaning to ask you this because you brought it up, and you said you're a history major. Is that right? Or
Yes, I got my degree in history.
so
And,
why history? Tell me that.
um, okay, so um, basically, I didn't know what I wanted to do. See, I always have to do like a backstory to things. I didn't really know what I wanted to do going into college. I didn't know what I wanted to do when it was like I'd been in college. It's like I had my minor completed, which was in religious studies, before I was for sure on a major. So my original major that I just kind of picked randomly was mass communications, which is probably a better career choice. Um, and then my idea for the history thing was, well, they didn't let me make my own major, which I thought it'd be cool to do like museum studies. So history was kind of like the default to be able to go ahead and graduate, because I I needed like I didn't want to be there years and years and years added on. I was already there for like 5 because I didn't know what I wanted to do. Um, so for history, just because my interests lie more in like the 20th century, like pop culture type America related um, history, even the wars and stuff too that took place in the 20th century. I thought in my brain, I was like, oh, I could work for the Smithsonian, or I could go work at like the Country Music Hall of Fame or something like that, and like be a curator. Little did I know, you pretty much have to have a PhD to do to
Oh,
do all those
really?
things. Yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah. I remember I actually had talked to a lady that was she had worked at the Smith or she was working at the Smithsonian at the time, and it's like, um, it's kind of a weird thing. Like I'm the first in my family to graduate from a 4-year college, so it's like I didn't really have an example of things that you should probably do, like internships and stuff like that. I didn't get the importance of it because it's like I had to work and put myself through school too. Um, so it's like whenever especially like if you're told you could do like an internship elsewhere, like if I had been told like, oh, you can come do an internship at the Smithsonian, like I wouldn't even know how to do that, because I would be like, how do you even afford to like drop everything, and like I'm assuming you'd have to move and stuff, but it's like that would be very cool. Um, but then yeah, so then like your internships and stuff, you don't really get the opportunity to do those whenever you graduate, because hello, they're for college students, not for people that have graduated school. Um, but yeah, so I'm not using my degree, but I feel like
Okay,
I'm like a
can
bunch
I
of
tell you
people
something?
my age.
Can I tell you about the internship? I didn't mean to interrupt you, but yeah, I know what you mean, because I took two internships, and at the time I walked into my job. It was nothing to do with radio at the time. I was able to work, and I got two internships at the exact same time. And I wasn't sure if that was allowed, but I went to the instructor at the course in the college, and he said, "Oh yeah, absolutely, take as many as you want." And so I took two separate internships at two different stations at the exact same time. And I was devoted so much to that. I was like, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to afford to pay my bills, but I quit my regular job. I took a very minor part-time job, but the internships paid off pretty quickly because I one of them hired me on within a month after I started doing part-time work. So I was able to get back into paying my bills regularly after that. So, but yeah,
Yeah, and so,
it's like a
so
it's like for me it was like, yeah, like you're saying, I don't know how I'm going to be able to do this and pay my bills at the same time.
yeah, because so many are unpaid, which is crazy. I mean, yeah, granted, like it gives you experience, but it's like it's free labor, and that's but honestly, it's like I feel like a lot of the jobs that I've had have been that way too. So I don't know. It's like um kind of like transitioning what I'm talking about a little bit, but it almost feels like even though I'm a certain age, and I don't know if you can relate, but it's like I don't know if it ever changes, but it's like I don't feel like my career has started really like I said, like I grew up with a family where it's like you had the same job for 40 years or whatever, like um and I haven't had that yet, or feel like I'm in that career spot where it's like this is going to be forever.
Yeah. Yeah, I know
It's
what you
like
mean. Yeah. So you're saying like you're having to
like
be you're kind of jump maybe still moving around a little bit?
well, it's like maybe it's a generational thing, like maybe it's just my age group and maybe younger, I'm not sure, but it's like it kind of just feels like um you know I'm in my 30s, but it kind of feels like I don't know, is life stunted? Like when does it actually start? Like, I'm not in like a career position, like working up a ladder anywhere. Like that's not really a thing anymore. So it's kind of I don't know, it just feels odd sometimes to be in that position where it's like if you compare yourself to other people, it seems like uh I don't know, like it's interesting to feel that way, I guess.
So where would you want your where do you want your career to go at this point? Back into radio, back in or history or
Well, I've given up the history.
Oh, okay.
I don't think I'm going to go and get my PhD to work at a museum. No, but I foresee myself. I would stick with communications. I enjoyed radio. I don't know. I don't necessarily know if just with how things are changing, I don't necessarily know that I would. I don't know. I never want to say no, but like I don't know if I would go back to how that is. Um, and as you know, it's like stuff's changing, like just with podcasting and like people that are you have to kind of learn your own self branding and promotion in a way. So it's like ideally, I think I would want to do communications, but like being in a position to like help people through whatever medium comes about.
Oh, so maybe like maybe becoming a teacher? I mean, in that way or
No,
no? Okay.
I feel like I'm Delilah, but me. Um, yeah, no, I don't know. I think life is weird and it uh, changes. I I just know that I have a heart to help people, and but like through communicating with them.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Well,
Yeah.
okay, I got
So,
so
but who knows? I might end up digging ditches.
so I do gotta ask you, but what was your special in, or what was your interest in history? What areas of history were you interested in the most, or are you still interested in?
Well, my like I said, my interest was like the 20th century stuff,
Okay.
like pop culture, but like within American history.
Oh,
Again, like I'm interested in the wars and stuff too. I now my while that stuff is still um interesting for me, my shift is kind of been more towards like psychology and like reading about that and about the history of that and just like I don't know, I think that bleeds into like self-help and stuff like that. But I think yeah, I think psychology stuff is pretty fascinating.
Oh, okay. All right. And that obviously that would lead you in the direction you're talking about, like helping people. I assume, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I'm diagnosing you one person at a time.
now, just to tell you, my interest when it comes to history would be North American history. It's two interests I've always had, and I'm not sure if this is something you're interested in. It was the American Civil War and the Native American history from basically the entire continent of North America. So I've studied both, and so I find both very fascinating. Both, and there's a lot of misconceptions about a lot of things that are taught in history itself, especially when it comes to Native American people, and when it comes to how the Civil War, you know, which I believe is inaccurately named, but how that was everything is taught. It's just there's people just have their perception of what things are, and it's not really the way it actually happened or transpired.
Yeah,
I
you're like interested in like early American history, early North
Yeah,
American history.
yeah, yeah. Because when it comes to Native American history, I studied all the way back to like the Olmec of Central America, which is the oldest culture that's known in North America so far, and that dates back. I forget. I think how many. I think that goes back at least 3,000 years. I know historically people have been here for like 12,000 years or 11 or 12,000 years. I think. So, um, and then when it comes to the American Civil War, there's a lot of different fascinations with that, and that also ties in with Native American history because there's a lot of Native American culture that blended in with the war that people leave out completely, as if it was just because they also interacted with the war in a great way. So, but
Yeah, there's
uh,
a lot of insightful books out there about, the different Native American stuff. I, surprisingly enough, am I have a good portion of Native American in me, even though I don't look like it at all. Um, so I guess that interest has it's been I guess sparked more in the last few years, but yes, I agree. There's a lot that people aren't taught about things, and then when you learn about it, it's just like, what? Like,
yes,
why
yeah.
didn't we learn about this?
So,
Like, this is messed up.
and I'm curious. Are you at least 1/16th Native American?
Yeah, my biological dad is half. Um, and then my on my mom's side, there's I'm probably like a 16th or something like that.
Because I think it was 16th was the number. It's either a 16th or a 32nd. If you're at least a 16th, you can live on a reservation and not have to pay income tax.
Yeah, but why would you? No, I would not want to go live on the res. Like, that's not healthy. Like, I mean,
But
yeah, there's a lot.
yeah, these are people that just don't want to pay income taxes. That's what it is. That's and
I would, I, I would have liked to have the ability to have a tribal card though, like to help out with college. That would have been helpful. But I'm not want to take advantage of the system in that way. I don't want to be like get a tribal card, but I'm not really not really participating in it.
like who's the congresswoman who did that recently? I can't remember. It was in the news. It was in the past year. She claimed that she was part something.
Oh, Elizabeth Warren, because Trump called her Pocahontas.
Yes, yes, yeah, yeah. It turned out she had less Native American DNA in her than the average person does. In fact, most average Americans are more likely to be Native American than she is. So,
Just like remembering him being like Pocahontas every speech that she would come up in. Um, but yeah, and like that's the thing too. It's like there's so many people that claim to have Native American in them, and hello, we there's a lot of people that do because you live in North America. So it's like one of those things where I don't. I don't necessarily be like cl- claim because I don't like. I don't know. Like I don't have a like I said a tribal card to like prove it or anything. And it's just I think one of those things that people say to kind of feel cool or something. Like you're Native American.
Yeah, most of the time, if someone says they're Native American, they'll say usually throw in Cherokee because the teacher who taught the class that I took actually he's the one that actually said that. He said almost every time someone says they always say they're Cherokee, because they don't know what they are. So Cherokees become the default as to what they were or what they are, I should say.
Because aren't they're the ones that were on the Trail of Tears, right? So
Yeah, Tears,
yeah,
and there's still a group of them that live in North Carolina, and then a large percentage of them live in Oklahoma now, and obviously in different parts. But yeah, the Trail of Tears, and but part of them, a small group of them was able to uh, defend against leaving, so they never left the South, so they're still in North Carolina. Yeah.
so me, I have Lakota Sioux, and I think like Creek.
Oh, those are two different. Wow, those are two completely different cultures right there.
Yeah, because I think the Creek comes from like my grandma's side, like the Arkansas and stuff like that. um, and then yeah, my like I said, my biological dad's like the Lakota.
Oh,
He
okay.
definitely he definitely looks Native American. I call him Dances with Wolves. I do not look Native American at all. But what about you? Do you have any in you that you know of?
No, as far as I know, I'm strictly German, Irish, Italian, and occasionally someone says that there's a little bit of Scotch mixed in there too, but nope, all European descent. So,
Yeah, the rest of me is pretty much that as well. But we did some DNA tests, the ancestry kits
uh-huh.
that you can buy. My grandma, she she wanted like my great grandma to do one, and then me and my mom and herself to do one. Which I'm like, why do we all need to do it if we're related? It's gonna be pretty much the same, right? Like it's gonna be routed to the same areas. But yeah, I was expecting to like see certain things, and I was like, well, where is this? Because I've been told my whole life that like we have so much of this, and it's not showing up. So I I don't know if I trust those DNA things because I'm like I don't know about those being
So,
so accurate.
what did you take it though? Did you actually go through with it? I mean, what
Well,
were
yeah,
the
it's like
results?
it's the spit. But see, it's the spit one. It's like it's a kit. You get it in the mail. You spit in it. You send it back. There's all this time in between, and I don't know. I just feel like it's weird to me because you have to get online and you get your results, and there was a bunch of people that pop up where it's like, oh, they could be related to you, and then it said that I was a certain relation to my great grandma, but it should have just said like, "Oh, you're a great grandchild," right? It acted like I was like maybe a distant cousin, so I don't, I don't trust it.
Interesting. I mean, so the DNA told you something that was wrong, so it wasn't really worth doing in the first place. It sounds like, and
I don't
it,
think it was. I think that's a kind of a, I don't know, because again, I had some strangers messaging me, and I'm like, yeah, no, I really don't think we're related at all. Like this thing is, this thing is lying.
yeah, that's the thing I was concerned with. If like people's like all of a sudden now they think you're related to them, they want to talk to you. It's like, yeah, I don't really feel like talking to people I don't know. I mean,
No, it's weird.
I barely talk to my own and my aunts and uncles to begin with, and I'm gonna start talking to people I've never even heard of. I don't know. I just don't really. I'm not really that kind of a person. I'm, like you said, more introverted in some ways, like you in some ways.
Well, and it's also, you can have the same last name and maybe like you're distantly, you know, related by one person or something. But like the ancestry site, literally, like it had people being my cousins, and I was like, well, that's impossible because, you can't be my first cousin because you are in your 50s and my mother has one brother and those kids are my age. Like, there's no way. So, yeah, I just feel like it comes with its own, like, you be skeptical about it. I don't think people are very skeptical. They just take things at face value on those things, and it's like, I don't know. But I did it
Yeah.
to appease my grandmother because am I going to tell her no? No.
Oh. What did your grandmother's results come back as? Did she find out people are trying to contact her?
Well, no, because it was me that signed, that was in charge of doing these things. But like I said, it didn't even have uh, her mom as her mom, on the site. So I was like, yeah, no. But I think the whole idea was to do it for my great grandma to
Oh, just to appease her.
see what she was, because she looks basically like she has like certain facial features that would be associated with Native American. I don't know. My grandma was just fascinated with doing that stuff, and I just, yeah, I wanted to do that for her. Um,
I,
yeah, and my great grandma is like, she's 98 now, so
wow.
it's like she
Wow.
she
Yeah, wow. That's really helpful.
she wanted to do the DNA test before anything should happen.
Well, I can partially relate to something similar. Probably about 20 years ago, maybe it might have been longer. My dad and my sister got fascinated with the history, our ancestry, our ancestral roots. So they went down to the National Archives in D.C. and they started tracing our ancestry back. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And my first thought is kind of like with the DNA, like, but I don't really want to meet any new people. And if this leads to being people, I really don't want to continue doing this. And they found it fascinating. I mean, I don't remember what they found. I think they found a bunch of logs that said our families date back to like at least the early 1800s when they came over to North America. So we've been here for a long time. But at that time, I was like, I guess I didn't really see the point of it. I just they found it fascinating. I just got bored with it. So
They wanted you to, you got, they're gonna find like a clan somewhere that has the family reunions, and they'd want to go, and you'd be like, no,
yeah,
no, I'm not into it. Thanks.
yeah, exactly.
You have fun meeting the long lost family. Yeah, I'm the same way. I lost it. It's cool. I lost interest in it too, because it's like, there were so many people that were like, were they married? Were they not married? Did they say they were married for like, like how people do now, where it's like they want the government money. So it's like people would do the same thing then, or it's like, oh, you have two families because you left your wife and you started another family. Like things just get very crazy, and you have to be careful about, um, trying to be accurate, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, as I mean, I don't see any. Yeah, I really don't want to move money. I really don't want to move forward with any of that. Just, I guess some people find it interesting, but I just feel like for me, it's just like, okay, it happened, it happened. Okay, let me just go on with my life. So,
Feel like I'm gonna just drive my right hand vehicles, my right side of the road vehicles.
but when you drive, talking about that, I'm just curious. When you drive, do you still work for the post office, or is that something that's over with? It's gone. Okay.
Yeah, no, I stopped doing that. Like I said, it takes a certain personality, and I am not that personality.
Did you have to deliver the mail into the boxes? Like
So
to
I
people's
my
houses?
my role was like, um, I legally didn't, I couldn't handle like mail, like I would, like letters. Um, so I delivered like packages.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like because they have different titles, and like it's a it's a hierarchy, like it's a union. So yeah, you have to like work your way up um to do stuff. But yeah, so my particular title, uh low man on the totem pole, you couldn't really do, yeah, things legally.
Okay, so there's like a separate department for packages and a separate department. Oh, I guess I think that's how it's working here now. For the first 15 years that I lived in my house, the post office refused to deliver packages to me. They would make me come down and pick them up. And I so because of that, I would purposely I would I would purposely ask people to ship it by UPS or Federal Express because they would deliver to my house, but the post office wouldn't. And recently, within the past year or so, I've noticed that there's a special truck that comes by. I don't think they have the mail; they only have the packages, and then they just drop them off at people's houses. So they've recently changed uh, their way of doing this. It sounds like what you're saying. Like maybe this is what you were doing. Like they only drop off the packages. Is that what you're like to people's houses or homes?
Um, I mean, I'm not really sure how it works there. I don't know. Like I would. So the post office actually, I think they have an agreement with Amazon, so it's like they can handle Amazon packages.
Oh, yes, I
Um,
know that. Yeah, that's an awful lot.
yeah.
Yeah,
So that
it's
because like that's what I mainly would deliver is Amazon packages to people. Um, but yeah, and then like some other thing, but that was uh mainly on weekends when because you have regular people that work and then you have like people that aren't career stage yet because once again it's a union so you have to work your way up. So I wasn't even like a career level person, so it's like you get to do stuff while the other people have their days off.
the I heard that Amazon deal is like it's a real cut rate deal that they worked out with them, and it's like they just lump all the packages off, and then you have to sort them out to deliver them. Um, and that's what I don't even buy from Amazon because of that. I got tired of it. It was just so bad. They whatever Amazon do, they would actually drive up to my post office, drop the packages off, and then the post office would send me a message like 2 or 3 days later, sometimes saying, "Come down and pick it up." And I
Oh,
just
weird.
I got tired of it. I just couldn't stand it. So I don't even order from Amazon anymore. I get just it was just so bad. So
You know what though?
um,
I was like, I don't know if you're familiar with like wish.com, but the I feel like Amazon's selection has gotten to be kind of in that like wish uh level of product, if that makes sense, where it's like I don't know. You can find some good things here and there, but it just seems like it's getting to be less and less quality.
oh really? Oh okay.
Yeah.
I haven't bought from Amazon now since like 2014 because I got so fed up with them. So is it over that since that period of time? Has it really changed that much?
Well, I mean, I don't I wasn't an Amazon, at least I can't remember if I was, but it wasn't like um people I was never that person to just be online shopping on Amazon. Um so I can't really answer that
Oh,
comparatively, but yeah, I just feel like it's you look on it now and it's like, where is this stuff coming from? It's coming from some, place you can't pronounce in
oh okay.
like China.
Yeah. Yeah, there are lots of people on there. It's like eBay. It's like vendors that sell their own stuff. So
Yeah, so you have to be careful. Like, I don't know. You have to be careful about that stuff, I think, because you're like, what is this?
no, no. The one thing I will say, I technically I have gone on on Amazon and I've actually bought things directly from their vendors. Even though I won't buy from Amazon directly because I can actually negotiate the shipping with the vendors sometimes. Like I'll contact them and I'll say, "Hey, can you ship this by, say, Federal Express or UPS?" And they'll say, "Yeah, sure, I'll do that." And if they do, and I'll say, "Okay, good, I'll buy it from you." I can't do that with Amazon though. Amazon is just like, you take whatever we give you, and so but yeah, so I take it back. I have gone on the website periodically and dealt directly with the vendors, and actually some of them, they're in the United States. They can be pretty nice to work with. So I forgot about that, but I don't do that very often. So it's like dealing with eBay. Like if I see something on eBay, I'll say, "Can you send it by UPS or Federal Express?" And most of the time they'll say, "Yeah, yeah, sure, no problem." So, um, and but yeah, that's the only thing about Amazon. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just like, I don't really mess with eBay either, but the last couple times I just get very frustrated because it's like, some people have it where it's like you can buy something right then and there. And then, of course, the other stuff you have to wait on the bidding process. And it drives me insane. It's like,
Yeah,
just let me buy it right now.
yeah, yeah.
I know
Yeah,
that kind of defeats the purpose, but still.
Now you can add some. Now you can with eBay. I don't know if you know this. But you could contact the seller, and if there's no bids placed on it, you could probably say, "Hey, I'll make you an offer," and they can close the bid. They can close it immediately, and they'll sell it to you. It's their choice. So,
Yeah, people seem to. It's like they seem to like to. I'll find something. I'm like, oh, cool. Like it's an obscure thing. Like who's looking for the? Who's looking for like for instance, I was talking earlier about adapters. It's like I was looking for a certain one a while back, and it's not something that I'm like, oh, it's in high demand. And I found one that was super cheap. So I was like, cool. And it's like people. I'm like, are they psychic? They know that this is the one that I wanted, so then they all just jump on it, last minute and jack the
uh,
price up.
yeah. Oh, yeah. What you call there's a word for that. I can't remember what it's called. When like
Annoying.
annoying. Yes, that too. Um, when people buy something, they purposely up the price so much. Scalper. Scalper is like a scalper like that. Is that what you're referring to?
No, I don't. Well, I don't know what they're doing, but sometimes I feel like I don't know if you can do this because I don't do eBay often enough to know. But I felt like before, because whenever you have to place your bids and stuff, I'm like, am I like making this more expensive for myself on accident? Like, am I bidding against
Oh,
against myself? Can you do that?
well, it used to long ago. They changed that around. The best way to bid on something, in my experience, is to wait until there's only 3 seconds left, and it's called snap bidding. And,
You're one of
and
those people.
yeah, what you do is you pick a price. You pick a price. You in your head you say, I'm going to pay this amount, and you bid that amount. So like say like the price the item's like at $20, and you say I'm willing to go up to $50. So what you do if it's only at $20, still bid the 50, and if no one else is there, then you'll only have to pay the $20. Um,
Right. And yeah, I get that. I just yeah, sometimes I'm
and
like feel like I messed up the system. I'd be like, I'm
Yeah, well, if you bet early though, you can increase your own price though. So like other people come on, they'll start upping the price. That's why I wait till there's only 3 seconds to go because it's all it's going to do is up the price more. So
yeah, yeah. I try to stay away from that. Just don't spend money at all. Save all my nickels and dimes.
well, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna say we should go ahead and we've been up for about an hour and a half doing our show here, and I'm gonna go say we should wrap everything up. Did you have anything else you wanted to say to our viewers?
Um, Hello and thank you for uh entertaining my randomness.
Okay, well, I appreciate you being on, Samantha. And is there anything you wanted to promote that you're doing? Any websites or anything that you have?
No, I don't know. I'm not gonna do any self shameless promotions. I don't have any of that.
Okay, okay, that's cool. But I really appreciate you being on it. I enjoyed the conversation too. And hold on while I um, don't disconnect yet while we wrap up the show here. But yeah, everyone, thanks for joining, and we'll see you next time. Thank you. Okay, hold on here.